kind of man others envied and admired. A self-made billionaire who had climbed from nothing. He prided himself on being sharp, calculated, and always in control. His business empire stretched across industries, making him one of the most successful black entrepreneurs in the country. But for all his wealth, there was one thing he hadn't found: real love. Then came Olivia. She was stunning, golden-haired, blue-eyed, with a smile that could melt even the coldest hearts. But it wasn't just her beauty that drew Marcus in. Olivia was different from the women who chased after his money, or at least that's what he believed. She was charming, witty, and effortlessly elegant. Unlike the socialites and models who often threw themselves at him, Olivia seemed unimpressed by his wealth. She laughed at his corny jokes, challenged his ideas, and made him feel something he hadn't felt in years: peace. From the moment they met at an exclusive gala in New York, Marcus felt a pull toward her. She wasn't from his world of high finance and ruthless deals. She was an artist, an independent spirit who spoke passionately about her work. She made him forget about boardrooms and bank statements, about the pressure of always being the best. Within months, he was deeply in love, convinced that he had finally found the woman who saw him for who he was, not what he had. Their whirlwind romance captivated everyone. Social media buzzed with photos of the powerful black billionaire and his elegant white fiancée. Some people cheered for their love story, calling it a modern fairy tale. Others whispered behind closed doors, questioning Olivia's intentions. After all, Marcus was no ordinary man. He was worth billions. And in a world where wealth often came with betrayal, some found it hard to believe that Olivia's love was pure. Marcus ignored the naysayers. He had spent his entire life proving people wrong. Why should this be any different? Love, he believed, was worth the risk. And so, on a breathtaking summer evening, under the soft glow of 100 twinkling lights, Marcus and Olivia said their vows. The wedding was nothing short of a spectacle: celebrities, politicians, and business moguls all in attendance. The world watched as Marcus kissed his bride, sealing what was supposed to be the happiest chapter of his life. But behind Olivia's radiant smile, something lurked, something dark. But signs were subtle at first. A strange phone call in the middle of the night that she quickly dismissed. A flash of nervousness in her eyes when Marcus mentioned merging their finances. A casual lie, small but noticeable, about where she had been one evening. Marcus brushed these things off, chalking them up to the stress of being newlyweds. But deep down, a whisper of doubt began to creep in. Then one day he found something he wasn't meant to see. It was just a single piece of paper hidden in the back of her dresser. A legal document with his name on it. But what it said, what it implied, made Marcus's blood run cold. His hands trembled as he reread the words, his mind racing to make sense of it. This couldn't be real. Olivia wouldn't do this to him, would she? His heart pounded as he heard the front door open. Olivia was home, and she had no idea what he had just discovered. What happened next would change everything. Underscore 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 underscore. Marcus's hands tightened around the paper as he heard Olivia's heels clicking against the marble floor. His heart pounded, a war raging in his mind. Should he confront her now? Pretend he hadn't seen it? Act normal? Nothing about this felt normal. His stomach twisted as he folded the paper and slid it into his pocket just as Olivia stepped into the room. "Hey, you're home early," she said, smiling as she walked over and kissed his cheek. Her perfume, light, floral, intoxicating, filled his senses, but it didn't have the same effect as before. Now everything about her felt unfamiliar, like he was seeing her for the first time. "Yeah," Marcus muttered, forcing a smile. "Meetings wrapped up sooner than I thought." Olivia tilted her head slightly, studying him. "You okay? You seem off." He wanted to believe that concern in her voice was real, that the woman standing in front of him wasn't hiding something, that what he just read wasn't what it seemed, but he couldn't unsee it. The words were burned into his mind. Prenuptial amendment, her signature, his name, clauses he had never agreed to, legal language that all but screamed deception. Marcus had always been careful. He wasn't the kind of man to let emotions cloud his judgment, especially when it came to his fortune. His legal team had drawn up a solid prenup before the wedding. one that ensured his assets remained his no matter what. Olivia had signed it without hesitation, saying she loved him, not his money. But this was different. This document was a revision, an attempt to change the terms, and worst of all, it had been drawn up without his knowledge. He forced himself to breathe, to stay calm. If Olivia sensed his suspicion, she might shut down or spin a story he wasn't ready to hear. He needed more information first. He needed to understand exactly what she was planning before making a move. I'm just tired, he finally said, rubbing his temple. Long day. Olivia's lips curled into a soft smile. Well, lucky for you, I made dinner. She wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head against his chest. I thought we could have a quiet night. Just us. Marcus swallowed hard, nodding. That sounds perfect. But perfect was the last thing it felt like. Over dinner, he watched her closely. Every smile, every glance, every moment she looked at him like he was the love of her life. Was it real? Had any of it ever been real? His mind raced back to their first meeting, to the way she had seemed so uninterested in his wealth. She had been refreshing. Someone who didn't fawn over him like most women did. Someone who made him feel like Marcus, the man, not Marcus, the millionaire. He had fallen fast, convinced she was different. But maybe that was the trick. Maybe that was the con. As Olivia poured them both a glass of wine, Marcus casually brought up the topic. I was thinking about our prenup today, he said, swirling the dark liquid in his glass. You remember signing it, right? She glanced up, surprised by the sudden shift in conversation. Of course. Why? He studied her expression. Not a single crack. Just curious. I mean, I know it's just a formality, but it's crazy how many legal hoops people have to jump through to protect their money. Olivia let out a small laugh, shaking her head. Tell me about it. But you know I never cared about any of that. Marcus forced a smile. I know. Lies. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of Olivia's breathing beside him. His mind spun with possibilities, each one darker than the last. Had she married him just for his money? Was she planning something worse? By morning, Marcus had made a decision. He needed answers. After Olivia left for her yoga class, he made a call. Within hours, his private investigator, David Langston, was sitting across from him in his office. David was a former federal agent, sharp, discreet, and ruthless when it came to uncovering the truth. I need you to look into Olivia, Marcus said, his voice low and firm. Every detail, every past relationship, every bank account. If there's something to find, I want to know. David raised an eyebrow. That's a hell of a request. You sure about this? Marcus exhaled sharply. I need to know who I married. David nodded, pulling out a notepad. Give me a few days. As Marcus sat in his office after David left, a deep unease settled in his chest. He wanted to believe he was wrong, that he was overreacting, that the woman he loved wasn't hiding something dangerous. But something told him that whatever he was about to find out was only the beginning. Marcus spent the next few days pretending everything was fine, smiling when Olivia smiled, laughing at her jokes, holding her at night like he wasn't questioning everything, but inside he was unraveling. Every moment felt like a lie, and the weight of what he didn't know pressed down on him like a vice. He kept replaying the moment he found that document, imagining 1,000 different explanations. Maybe there was some logical reason for it. Maybe Olivia wasn't plotting anything sinister. Maybe he was just being paranoid. But then David called. I found something, David said, his voice calm but firm. Marcus's stomach tightened. Go on. Olivia's been in contact with a man named Eric Langford, David continued. Ever heard of him? Marcus frowned. The name meant nothing to him. Who is he? A lawyer, David said, specializing in high asset divorces. Marcus felt his pulse hammering in his ears. You're sure? Positive, David said. They've had several private calls over the past few months, some before the wedding, some after. And that's not all. Marcus gripped the phone tighter. What else? She's got an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, David said. Deposits started showing up 6 months ago. Large ones, we're talking millions. Marcus felt like the air had been knocked out of him. Where's the money coming from? That's what I'm still trying to figure out, David admitted. But it doesn't look good, Marcus. It's either coming from someone who's paying her or she's moving your money without you realizing it. Marcus clenched his jaw, his mind racing. The Olivia he married, the woman who claimed to love him for who he was, had been talking to a divorce lawyer before they were even married. And now she had a secret bank account filled with money that shouldn't be there. It took everything in him not to storm home and confront her right then and there. But he couldn't. Not yet. He needed more information. If he played this wrong, she could twist things, deny everything, maybe even disappear before he got the truth. So instead, he thanked David, hung up the phone, and sat there in silence, trying to process the reality he was now living in. That night, Olivia came home late. Sorry, she said, dropping her bag on the couch and kicking off her heels. Had dinner with Stephanie. Lost track of time. Marcus studied her, looking for any hint of guilt, any flicker of deception. She looked the same as always, effortlessly beautiful, calm, completely in control. Everything okay? She asked, noticing his stare. He forced a small smile. Yeah, just tired. She walked over, running a hand over his shoulder. Maybe we should take a trip, she suggested. Just the two of us. Somewhere quiet. You've been working too hard. Marcus couldn't tell if it was genuine or part of some bigger plan. Was she trying to distract him? Keep him off balance? Maybe even get him somewhere isolated where she had more control. We'll think about it, he said, keeping his voice even. Olivia kissed his cheek before heading to the bedroom. But Marcus didn't follow. He sat there for a long time staring at the wall, realizing just how deep he had fallen into something he didn't understand. The next morning, he decided to take matters into his own hands. If Olivia was hiding something, he needed to see it for himself. While she was out, he searched the house. Every drawer, every file, every hidden corner. And then in her closet, behind a row of designer shoes, he found something that sent a chill down his spine. A burner phone. His fingers tightened around it as he turned it on, scrolling through the messages. Most were deleted, but one third remained. A conversation with an unknown number. Unknown. He hasn't figured it out yet, but we need to move soon. Olivia? I know. Just waiting for the right time. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He read the messages again, his heart pounding. He had expected deception, maybe even a plan to take his money. But this felt like something worse. He put the phone back exactly as he found it, then walked out of the closet, his hands shaking. Olivia wasn't just hiding something. She was planning something. And whatever it wasn't over yet. Marcus could barely keep his hands steady as he walked out of the closet, his mind spinning. The words on that burner phone echoed in his head. He hasn't figured it out yet, but we need to move soon. He had expected Olivia to be after his money, but this felt bigger, darker. Move soon? Move how? What was she planning? And more importantly, who was she talking to? He forced himself to act normal. If Olivia suspected he was onto her, she might change the plan, disappear, or worse. He had to play this carefully. That evening, as they sat across from each other at dinner, Marcus studied her every move. The way she twirled her fork in her pasta, the way she smiled at him like nothing was wrong. Was she pretending? Or was this just who she really was? A master manipulator, a woman who could look him in the eyes and lie without hesitation. I was thinking, Olivia said, setting down her wine glass. Maybe we should go away this weekend. Just the two of us. Marcus's stomach clenched. That was the second time she had mentioned the trip. Was this part of the plan? Was she trying to get him somewhere private? Somewhere where she had control? Where were you thinking? He asked, keeping his tone casual. Somewhere quiet, she said. A cabin upstate, maybe. No distractions. Just us. Marcus forced a smile, nodding. Sounds perfect. But inside, alarms were ringing. That night, while Olivia slept, Marcus called David. She wants to take a trip. Marcus whispered into the phone. Just the two of us. David was silent for a moment. That's not a good sign. You think she's planning something? I think you don't go anywhere alone with her until we know exactly what she's up to, David said. I've been digging deeper, and you're not gonna like what I found. Marcus braced himself. Tell me. She's not who she says she is, David said. The name Olivia Langley is real, but her past is almost too clean, too perfect. And the offshore account, the money in it isn't just from someone paying her. Some of it was moved from your accounts. Marcus's breath caught. That's impossible. I would have noticed. She's good, Marcus, really good. She's been pulling money in small amounts, just enough not to raise alarms. But over time, it adds up. Marcus closed his eyes, gripping the phone. How much? About 3 million. A cold dread settled over him. $3 million. Gone. And he had no idea. And that's not all, David continued. The number she's been texting. I traced it. The phone is registered to a man named Eric Langford. The divorce lawyer? Marcus asked. Yeah, David said. But here's the thing. Langford isn't just a lawyer. He's got ties to some people you don't want to be involved with. Money laundering, shady business deals, even a few cases where wealthy men like you got taken for everything they had. Marcus's blood ran cold. You're telling me Olivia's working with him? I'm telling you she's not acting alone, David said. She's playing the long game, and you're the target. Whatever's about to happen next is big. Marcus sat in the dark, ripping his phone, his heart hammering. He looked over at Olivia, sleeping peacefully, her face calm and innocent. But there was nothing innocent about this. She had planned this from the start. Every moment, every touch, every word, it had all been a game. And now she was ready to make her final move. But so was he. As Marcus hung up the phone, he made a decision. No matter what Olivia was planning, no matter how deep this went, he wasn't going to be her next victim. He was going to turn the game around, and she would never see it coming. Marcus barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, his mind filled with the weight of what he now knew. Olivia had been planning this from the start. Every kiss, every whispered promise, every moment they shared, it was all part of a bigger game. But what was the end goal? And just how far was she willing to go? By morning, he had a plan. He wasn't just going to sit back and wait for Olivia to make her next move. He needed to get ahead of her, to flip the script before she could take everything from him. As he sat at the breakfast table, watching her sip her coffee, he forced himself to play along. I was thinking about that trip, he said, keeping his voice light. You're right. We need some time away. Olivia's eyes lit up, but there was something calculated about the way she smiled. Really? You mean it? Of course, Marcus said, nodding. Why don't you go ahead and book it? Pick somewhere nice. Something private. She tilted her head slightly, studying him, as if trying to read between the lines. Then she grinned. That sounds perfect. But Marcus wasn't planning to go anywhere. He just needed her to think he was still in the dark. After Olivia left for the day, Marcus met with David in person. They sat in the back of a private lounge, away from prying eyes. She took the bait, Marcus said. Now we need to figure out what her next move is. David slid a folder across the table. You might want to see this first. Marcus opened it, his stomach twisting as he scanned the contents. It was Olivia's phone records. Dozens of calls to Langford, just as expected. But that wasn't what caught his attention. It was another name. One he never could have predicted. Ryan Langley? Marcus murmured, reading the number Olivia had been calling repeatedly. Who is this? David hesitated before answering. Her brother. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Olivia had never mentioned a brother. Not once. I did some dating, David continued. Ryan Langley has a record. Fraud, identity theft, even some violent offenses. He's been in and out of trouble for years. And here's where it gets interesting. He just got out of prison 6 months ago. Marcus's grip tightened on the folder. 6 months ago, right around the time Olivia started moving money. She never told me she had a brother, Marcus muttered. Why would she hide that? Because she didn't want you asking questions, David said. And get this, Ryan has ties to Eric Langford. They were involved in a real estate scam a few years back. They ran it on another wealthy businessman. Took him for everything. And Marcus, David hesitated before finishing. That guy disappeared. Marcus looked up sharply. Disappeared? Vanished without a trace, David said. His accounts were emptied, his property was sold off, and no one's seen him since. A chill ran down Marcus's spine. He had thought Olivia was just after his money. But now it felt like something much worse. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. You think they're planning to do the same thing to me? David's expression was grim. I think whatever's happening, it's bigger than just a divorce settlement. And if they're following the same pattern, he didn't finish the sentence, but Marcus knew exactly what he was implying. His heart pounded. This wasn't just about money anymore. He was in real danger. Marcus clenched his fists, his mind racing. If Olivia and her brother were planning something, he needed to turn the tables before they had the chance. He looked at David. Find out where Ryan is. I want to know exactly what he's doing. David nodded. Already on it. As Marcus left the lounge, he felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. Olivia had fooled him once, but she wouldn't fool him again. He was done playing her game. Now it was time to play his own. Marcus felt the pressure of time closing in. He didn't know when Olivia and Ryan planned to make their final move, but he had no doubt it was coming soon. He could see it in the way Olivia watched him now, like she was waiting for something, testing the waters, seeing if he suspected anything. He played along, smiling at her, pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. David had tracked down Ryan's whereabouts. He was staying in a rundown motel just outside the city. Marcus knew he had to act fast. If he waited too long, he might not get another chance. That night, while Olivia was out, Marcus drove to the motel, his heart pounding. He wasn't sure what he was expecting to find, but when he knocked on the door and Ryan opened it, he knew he had stepped right into the middle of something dangerous. Ryan was taller than Marcus had imagined, with sharp eyes that instantly narrowed in suspicion. Who the hell are you? Marcus forced a smirk, keeping his voice steady. You know who I am, and I know exactly what you and your sister are planning. Ryan's face twitched just slightly, but Marcus caught it. I don't know what you're talking about, Ryan said, stepping back as if to close the door. Marcus shoved his foot in before he could. I think you do, and I think you should hear me out before you make a mistake you can't undo. Ryan hesitated, then exhaled sharply. You got 5 minutes. Marcus stepped inside, his senses on high alert. The room smelled like stale cigarettes, and clothes were strewn across the furniture. A duffel bag sat open on the bed, filled with stacks of cash. So, what's the plan? Marcus asked, crossing his arms. Bleed me dry, then make me disappear like the last guy. Ryan's jaw tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're not as good at lying as Olivia is. He took a step closer. Here's the thing. I don't go down easy. And I definitely don't go down alone. If anything happens to me, the authorities will be all over you too before you even have time to run. Ryan looked away, his jaw twitching. He was cracking. Marcus could feel it. You're not the one in control anymore, Marcus said. Olivia thinks she has me fooled, but she's the one walking into a trap. Ryan turned back, something shifting in his expression. What do you mean? Marcus smirked. I mean, you should call your sister. Ask her where she is right now. Ryan hesitated before pulling out his phone. He dialed Olivia, putting it on speaker. It rang once, twice. Then she picked up. Where are you? Ryan asked, his voice laced with something new, uncertainty. There was a pause on the other end. Then Olivia's voice came through, sharp and cautious. Why? Just tell me, Ryan pressed. I'm at home, she said. Marcus' smirk widened. No, you're not. Silence. Then Olivia's breath hitched. Marcus. Ryan's grip tightened on the phone. What's going on? Marcus leaned in slightly, his voice cold. You thought you were setting me up, Olivia. But the truth is, I've been setting you up this whole time. Ryan's face drained of color. Olivia's breath turned shaky. Marcus listened. No, Marcus cut her off. You listen. I know everything. The offshore accounts, the calls to Langford, the money you've been funneling. And now the police know too. Ryan turned to Marcus in alarm. You called the cops? Marcus tilted his head. Did you really think I'd let you two get away with this? There was a rustling sound on the phone, then Olivia's voice, more desperate now. Marcus, we can talk about this. Too late, Marcus said. I already made my move. A sudden knock sounded on the motel door. Ryan's eyes widened in panic as he looked at Marcus, who simply took a step back. Showtime, Marcus muttered. Ryan bolted for the back door, but it was too late. The door burst open and officers flooded in. Within seconds, Ryan was face down on the ground, handcuffed. His phone lay on the floor, Olivia's voice still coming through. Ryan, what's happening? Marcus picked up the phone, bringing it to his ear. Game over, Olivia. There was silence on the other end. Then, for the first time, Olivia's voice broke. You don't understand. It wasn't just me. Marcus's brows furrowed. What are you talking about? But before she could answer, there was a loud bang in the background, and the line went dead. Marcus froze. His grip tightened around the phone. Something wasn't right. He turned to David, who had just walked into the room, watching as the officers led Ryan away. "We need to find Olivia," Marcus said, his voice tense. David gave him a wary look. "You just got rid of her. Why would you want to find her now?" Marcus swallowed hard. "Because I think someone else is pulling the strings." And just like that, the entire game had changed again. Marcus' pulse pounded as he stared at the silent phone in his hand. The last thing he heard was Olivia's voice, cut off by a noise that sent a chill down his spine. Was she in danger? Or was this just another part of her game? He had spent weeks uncovering her lies, preparing to take her down, but now, for the first time, uncertainty crept in. If Olivia wasn't the mastermind, then who was? And what had she meant by it wasn't just me? David placed a firm hand on Marcus's shoulder. "We got Ryan. That's a big win." Marcus exhaled sharply. "Yeah, but something doesn't add up." He looked David in the eye. "I need to find her." David hesitated, then sighed. "I had a feeling you'd say that." He pulled out his phone, already making calls. "I'll track her down." Marcus drove home in silence, his thoughts racing. When he pulled into his driveway, the house felt eerily quiet. Olivia's car wasn't there. He walked inside, every instinct on edge. He checked her closet. Half of her clothes were gone. The safe in the office was open, empty. She was running. Running from who? His phone buzzed. "David." "She's at the airport," David said. "Private terminal." Marcus's heart clenched. "Who's she flying with?" "That's the thing," David said. "She's not booked on a flight. But guess who is?" He paused. "Eric Langford." Marcus felt his stomach drop. So that was it. The lawyer who had been pulling the strings all along. The one who had handled the disappearances, the money laundering, the clean getaways. Olivia had been his pawn. Maybe willing, maybe not. But now she was stuck in a web bigger than she had ever intended. Marcus gritted his teeth. "I'm going there." By the time he arrived at the airport, the sun was setting. The private terminal was quiet, but Marcus spotted Olivia near the entrance, pacing. She looked different, nervous, disoriented. He stepped out of his car and called her name. She froze. Then slowly, she turned to face him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Olivia exhaled shakily. "Marcus, I didn't want it to end like this." Marcus walked toward her. "Then tell me the truth." "All of it." Her eyes flickered with something relief. "Guilt?" Then she nodded. "It was never just about you," she admitted. "Eric set this up years ago. He finds men like you, wealthy, powerful, easy targets. I was supposed to get close to you. Move the money, disappear when the time was right." She swallowed. "But then Ryan got involved. And he got greedy. He wanted to take it further." Marcus clenched his jaw. "So what was the plan? Was I supposed to vanish like the last guy?" Olivia shook her head quickly. "No, not at first. But when Ryan found out how much money you had, things changed." She took a deep breath. "I told you it wasn't just me. Eric was pulling the strings. But Ryan wanted to take it further. He wasn't going to stop at money." A sick feeling twisted in Marcus's stomach. He had been steps away from something much worse. He stared at her, searching for the truth in her eyes. "So why are you here? Why not leave with him?" Olivia hesitated. "Because I couldn't do it. Not to you." Her voice broke slightly. "I was going to run. Not with Eric. Not with Ryan. Just disappear." Marcus studied her, trying to figure out if this was just another layer of the game. But for the first time, Olivia didn't seem like the woman who had lied to him for months. She looked exhausted, defeated. Footsteps sounded behind him. Marcus turned to see David approaching, his expression tense. "Langford's here," he murmured. "He's waiting for her inside." Olivia stiffened. "If I go in there, I will walk out." Marcus didn't doubt it. Langford wouldn't let loose ends slip away, and Olivia had officially become a loose end. Marcus made a decision in that moment. "You're not going in," he said firmly. Olivia's eyes widened. "What?" Marcus turned to David. "Call the cops. Tell them Langford is here. Tell them he's the one behind it all." David nodded and stepped away to make the call. Olivia shook her head. "Marcus, you don't understand. Eric has people everywhere. If they find out I turned against him, then you leave," Marcus said. "For real this time. Not with his money. Not with his plan. Just go." Olivia stared at him, tears welling in her eyes. Why would you help me after everything I did? Marcus exhaled, shaking his head. Because I don't think you ever had a real choice. A long pause hung between them before Olivia finally nodded, swallowing hard. I'll go. Just then, flashing lights filled the private terminal. Officers stormed inside. Within minutes, Langford was let out in cuffs, his face twisted in fury. Ryan had already flipped on him, and now with Olivia's testimony, it was over. Marcus watched as Olivia turned to leave, her silhouette fading into the night. He didn't know where she was going. He didn't ask. He just knew that for the first time in weeks, the game was finally over, and he had won.